Okay, I think we're about ready. You about ready, Nancy?
Mhm.
Okay, we'll get started then. My name is Jerry Gill. Today is February 19th, 2009. I'm visiting with Nancy Randolph Davis here in the ConocoPhillips OSU Alumni Center on the Oklahoma State University campus. This interview is for the O State Storage Project of the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program. And Nancy, thank you very much for being with us today for this interview. I know you've had a busy day today. You were recognized earlier at Langston University, I think.
That's right.
Okay. Nancy, can you tell me a little bit about, starting off a little bit about your early life, about your family, where you grew up?
Yes, I would like for you to know that I grew up in Sapulpa, Oklahoma. That's where I was born.
Mm-hmm.
My parents were Mr. Ed Napoleon and Ernestine Randolph.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad was a railroadman. He worked for the Frisco Railroad Company. I had 4 brothers and 1 sister, and we stayed in a 6-room house. We had to, at that time, we lived across the street from the Booker T. Washington School,
Mm-hmm.
and my parents were always there at home. My mother did not work. She was a homemaker. And my daddy had to go to Tulsa to work for the Frisco Railroad Company, which was located in West Tulsa, Oklahoma. They taught us to be sure to be clean, neat, respectful, honest, and to always tell the truth.
Well, Nancy, what about your, can you tell me a little about your family roots, a little about your family history? Understand that they maybe your great-grandparents were actually slaves?
Well, my great-grandparents were slaves, but my grandparents
Mhm.
were not slaves.
Now, did they live in Texas?
They lived in Marlin, Texas. My dad's people lived in Marlin, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
My mother's people lived in what you call a town called Yoakum, Texas.
Mhm.
And when my mother came to Oklahoma,
Mhm.
they settled at Colbert, Oklahoma, and they came in a long wagon train. And you've heard of Claude Evans? Claude Evans' daddy and my grandfather were cousins.
I'd heard that. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And they all stayed at different places, and they helped each other build their houses at that time. Coming into Oklahoma, they built houses along the way, and they would help each other.
Nancy, that was that in 1903 that they
Yeah.
came up?
It was about 1900 or 1903.
Mhm.
I don't remember the date exactly.
So, Claude grew up in Poto,
Poto,
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
And then you grew up in Sapulpa. Could y'all come up as a group, a family of about 30 families, I think, as I understand? Did you get a little scattered out then after that?
Well, I don't know how many families there were, but I know there were at least 7 or 8 families.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother's people stayed there in Colbert, Oklahoma. She had some sisters who lived there. And my daddy worked for the railroad company, so he was always on the road going.
Mm-hmm.
But his mother and father lived in Marlin, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a big farm there in Marlin, Texas. And they lived across the street. They had a farm that the highway ran through. And my dad's people usually had about 8 or 10 kids in the family. My daddy had less than any of them. With my mother and father, my oldest brother, 1 sister, and 4 brothers. And we all lived in Sapulpa. And my dad went to Sapulpa after he had worked for the Frisco Roundhouse. And that was close to Tulsa. And that was as close as he could get at that particular time with a home. So they lived there in Sapulpa, Oklahoma. He would commute and use the bus for transportation back and forth to work. He'd go to work at 1 o'clock and come back by 12 at night.
Were there you mentioned some things earlier, Nancy, about principles that your family instilled in you. Was education, importance of education, one of those?
Oh, education was the main thing. Get an education. Whatever you do, you must finish high school. If you live in this household, you must get an education. So there were three of us who attended college. My brother, Carl Dennis, my sister, and I. We attended some kind of college. And I attended Langston University. And that was in 1944 through 1948.
Okay. So Nancy, you graduated Booker T. Washington High School in Sapulpa in 1944. Then you enrolled at Langston that fall in 1944.
That's
okay.
right.
Well, was it common at that time for for African American women to attend college? I mean, that was probably a little unusual, wasn't it, on your part?
Well, it was in my class of 1944 because our principal and his wife, D.A. Williams, and Zimia Williams, they told us kids that they wanted to see us go to college. There's not enough kids from Sapulpa going to college. So we had some who had gone to college, but they wanted our class, and they thought our class was kind of smart and we should go to college.
Did you get any financial assistance to go to college?
No, there wasn't any kind of financial assistance. My dad had to work hard on the Frisco Railroad Company. He worked day and night, making sure that he saved enough money for us to go to college if we wanted to.
Did you work part-time at school as a student?
No, I did not.
That's good.
But I did have a little Saturday job I would babysit. I made $1.50 a day.
It's great wages. Well, Nancy, what influenced you to seek a college degree? I know your parents certainly encouraged you for high school, but I mean, did you know you wanted to go to college? I mean, did you know what you wanted to be when you were in high school?
Well, when I was in high school, I really knew that I wanted to be a home economics teacher. I had a teacher at my school by the name of Mittie Jackson. She was from my hometown.
Minnie Johnson?
Mittie, M-I-T-T-I-E.
Oh, Mittie. I see.
Mittie Jackson. So she was a lady that we all have high esteem for. She was one of those who said, Nancy, you would do good if you go to college and major in home economics since you like to cook so well. And so you can sew pretty good, so you can sew. And that's the main thing that they did in school back there, so in home economics, sewing and cooking, and maybe making baby clothing and children clothing. And we did a little bit of serving food for the high school football team because the football boys could not go to a restaurant, so we served the boys after the football games every Friday night that we had a game.
Great. Did you have a good football team?
I was one of those that volunteered to serve.
Did you have a good football team?
We had a nice football. We were called the Sapulpa Bulldogs. And we had our little pep club, and we had our little blue skirts and white tops. And we just really did go with the pep club.
So were you a member of the pep club?
Yes.
So did you lead the cheers and do things like that?
Well, I did not lead the cheer. I wasn't a cheerleader.
You're just in the pep club. Okay. Well, you see, so then when you, or let me just first of all ask about a little bit briefly your experience at Langston. Was it a good experience for you? And were you involved in other activities other than just school?
Yes, Langston University was a place where I really received lots of outlet for experience because my home economics teachers would have us to fix meals, fix cookies and sandwiches, dainty little sandwiches for teas, and make all kinds of tea from tea leaves and Lipton's tea and all of that, and putting juice in it and lemons and so forth. That was an experience that we knew that we had to dress up for every Sunday evening and go to the tea. And the tea would be held in Sanford Hall. So we enjoyed that.
Did you live on campus there in a residence hall?
I lived in the oldest building the first 2 years, the oldest building on the campus, which was called Phyllis Wheatley Building. Phyllis Wheatley was a lady who wrote poems, and she was a slave.
That's great. Well, let's see. So after you received okay. So Nancy, your last year, you're talking about your T's, but your senior year, you had to live in a certain cottage together, the home economics majors, is that correct?
Yes.
Could you share a little bit of information about that?
We lived in the home economics cottage, which was there across the street from Phyllis Wheatley, a little brick building. And we had a home economics supervisor, Mrs. Sadie G. Washington. And she taught we had to learn how to prepare breakfast, lunch, and dinner in using the 4 basic foods at that time. And we always had our table men had to carry out table manners. We had to carry out our cooking terms and know how we cooked our different foods so we could share it with the class. And we would serve anybody who came to the campus that was new or somebody visiting the campus. We thought that would be the best way to learn, at least Mrs. Washington. And I remember we served M.B. Tolson, and I went to the tea today at the M.B. Tolson Library. And that he was called Poet Laureate and he was a great poet and a great
English teacher.
Hmm?
English teacher.
Oh, he was an English teacher, but he was also
A writer and a poet.
A writer and a poet, and he also presented plays. That's what I was trying to say.
Great. Well, were there some other activities, organizations that you're part of there at Langston University as a student?
Yes, I was a part at that particular time. I was part of the Young Women Christian Association. I was part of the Langston University Women's Dormitory Association at Phyllis Wheatley, where we had our devotion and prayer. And we had prayer every Sunday night, believe it or not. And we had singing. And we would get to experience others' talents. I was a part of the Philadelphia Club, which is a club that you had to make at least a CFS to join the club. And then I came, my junior year, I joined the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. And that was a big thing. You really had to learn a lot and do a lot of different activities. No, that was my senior year, or last year. And I went to do my student teaching at Luther, Oklahoma. And Luther is just a little country town, but that's where I did my student teaching. And I learned a lot there under Mrs. Ballard, who was a supervising teacher. And Miss Gandy was the state supervisor. She taught us on the campus. And she also taught us how to be good teachers, how to go in the community and work with people, make home visits. And she taught us to remember that we had to do something with our children, not just let them make a garment, like some people would have them make tea towels. We had to help them to make something that they could wear. And they had to model their clothing that they made. Sometimes it was a dress, sometimes a suit, sometimes a coat, and sometimes an evening dress. But they had to do their own clothing. And they made clothing for their little brothers and sisters at home.
If you don't mind me giving you a compliment, every time that I've ever known you, that I've ever seen you, you've really been dressed just lovely and beautiful. Where did that come from? Did that come from this experience or from your home or where?
It came from this experience. At least I knew how to, even though I didn't have the clothing and I didn't have the hats and all of that, but I knew what to wear to church and what to wear for sports affairs, and always practice wearing clothing for home wear, school wear.
So you did your practice teaching at Luther,
Oklahoma. Yeah.
And now when you graduated though from Langston, then you took a position at is that Dungy High School in Choctaw?
Yes, it was an all-black school. At that time, we called it all-Negro school. And when I taught at Dungy School, I had a one-room building where I had 60 kids with 5 sewing machines. And only three of them would work. I learned how to work on the machines. I didn't know how to be a mechanic, but I learned how to work with them.
Said
And
five
then
machines and only 2 worked. Is that right?
Only 3 worked.
Only 3 worked.
And then the next year, after I was there, came there in 48 and 49, they built a home economics building. And that is where we really had a lot of fun. We had a living room, all-purpose room, bathroom, and a washer and a dryer in the laundry room. And the kids learned how to do laundry by using the washing machine and the dryer. And they learned how to be a good hostess when somebody would come in. They were appointed to be a hostess, and they were appointed to be the chairman of the foods committee. We had it where we really had a good home situation.
Well, let me ask you this. So obviously you felt the need to go ahead and get your master's degree, so that after that first year you taught at Dungy, so that next year you decided to get your master's degree?
Well, no, it wasn't the next year. It was that summer, the following summer.
Following summer after
I began to go and work over at Oklahoma State University. And when I went to Oklahoma State University, I remembered that the lady who was head of the home economics department, I have forgotten her name.
It wasn't Dr. O'Toole, was it? Leila
No,
O'Toole?
no.
The one before her?
But she was the one who told me, "Don't you come to this university. You Negroes are not ready." And she talked about how the Negro kids would make fun of them because they had to go to the restaurant and eat with their hands, gloves on, and they had to, they had to remove their clothes or go dressed up. And she told me that I should attend school in Kansas, Ohio, Colorado, or go to Illinois.
What? So why did you want to go to Oklahoma State University?
Because Oklahoma State University is in the state of Oklahoma. It was inexpensive. It was a place where I could go and see my father and my mother and my sisters and brothers on weekends. So even though they were older, and I was the youngest one in the family, but I had an older brother who lived there in Sapulpa. And one thing that happened that I shall never forget is my older brother came to visit us at Christmas time. He had moved to Tulsa. And when he came at Christmas time, he brought his wife and 4 babies. 4 are 6 years old, 4 years old, 3 years old, and a 3-month-old baby. His wife took sick. And when she took sick and had the 3 days in the morning, she died. And that was the most tragic thing that's ever happened in my whole life. I shall never forget how I would go outdoors and just cry and ask the Lord to help me to live and see, to help my mother with those 4 boys. My mother and father raised those 4 boys, and all 4 of them finished high school, went over to Tulsa and found a job at the nightclub, and came back at the country club. And they'd go to Langston every weekend. And they went to Langston each year until they finished.
Well, Nancy, let me ask you this: what at that time, higher education institutions in Oklahoma, including OSU, had been segregated up to that time. What legal event changed that allowed you to enroll at Oklahoma State?
Well, the legal event that took place was that Ada Lewis Scipio fought a court battle for 2 years, and also G.W. McLaurin thought he was wanting to get a master's degree in English in education, and Ada Lewis wanted to get her law degree. At that time, Ada Lewis Scipio, who was my dormitory mate, she lived in the same dormitory, she decided that she was going to fight and go into school and get her law degree. And she did that with the help of the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And they had a lawyer by the name of Amos G. Hall that fought the case for them, and Thurgood Marshall, who was on the Supreme Court. They fought the case, and they won. So Ada Lewis went to OSU, and they decided that they would not let her in the school, but they would have a little law school at the state capitol. So they had a law school at the state capitol, but it was too expensive to keep up because they only had one student and one professor, and it was too expensive, so they decided to not have it, the law school. They had to let it go.
Well, Nancy, it must have taken courage to enroll at an all-white, very large university. What gave you the strength and the conviction to do that?
Well, I think really my mother and my father, if you want something, you have to work for it. Work hard. Be determined. Don't you give up. You stay right with it. You can do it. So my mother and my father, my church, my sisters and my brothers, they always said, you can do it, girl. You're smart. You can do it. And you know, with this feeling that you have self-esteem, telling you that you can do it, I felt that I could do it. I felt that I was ready because of the hard work that my parents had done. So that I went on to have the faith and the courage, and mostly faith in God.
Great. Okay, hang on a second. Nancy, kind of going back to a question we were talking about earlier about, why you enrolled at Oklahoma State University. I know your parents encouraged you, and then can you share with us a little bit more about that?
Well, my dad was one that always had visions, and he was a man that believed that we could go places if we get an education. So he would listen to the radio, read the papers, and at that time we didn't have a television, but he'd keep up and he said, I'm just listening to this radio, and I read in the paper where this school at Stillwater is going to be a great school, and it's going to grow. And I sure would like to see you get your degree from Langston, get out of high school and go there, but you won't be able to go because it's not a school for Negroes to go to. So he instilled in me that I could go. And at that time, Dr. Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, they had opened doors, not then. No, it was later on.
But
he was the one that really encouraged me to get my education, go to OU and Langston University, Stillwater, and get your degree, because that school is going to be a reputable school.
They had quite a reputation nationally. Was growing
even when it was growing.
Great.
Reputable home economics program.
Oh, he said it would have the best agricultural and home economics department.
And I think he was right. It was really getting strong reputation at that time. Well, so you attended in the summers because you were still teaching. So was it 3 or 4 summers, or you started in the summer of 1949?
I started the summer of 49, and there's 50, 51, 52, 4 summers that I worked hard to go to school at Oklahoma State University. At that time, we did not have any scholarship program. My dad and mother had sent me to Langston University where I did not have to work. But I decided myself that I would go to school during the summers because lots of teachers were doing that. Go to school at a big university and then go and teach during the fall. So that's what I did.
Well, did you recall the admissions and enrollment process? Can you tell me about that experience? You come up to Oklahoma State University and enroll. What kind of experience was that for you? Well,
that was an experience that I went to the registrar's office, asked if I could enroll, so they told me that I had to go and see the head of the department. And the head of the department was a lady that certainly was not ready. She said we weren't ready, and she said, you're not ready to go to school here because Negroes are not there. And she talked about how this man from Guthrie, who was a janitor, stole the seal from Guthrie, Oklahoma, and took it to Oklahoma City. She didn't realize there were some whites happening, but she said that he was the one that stole the seal. She was from Guthrie, and she just was upset because of that. And she told me that I just should go to school in Illinois, Colorado, Kansas, or some school out of state. Because at that time, the state was paying the tuition for those who went out of state. And I told her, she said, well, why don't you do that? I told her, no, I want to go to school in my own state. This is where I was born and reared.
And this was the head of the department, home economics education department.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She wrote a book. I wished I.
So, had you been on the OSU campus before? I mean, what was your first impression of OSU when you come on campus?
Oh, when I came on the campus, it was just a very small campus. Mm-hmm. I remember the old fire station. I remember the administration building. I remember the home economics building, science building, and and OSU was doing a lot of remodeling. I had to go across the street to go to on my block to a two-story brown and white house for my classes at the very beginning. And those girls in the classroom were just happy to have me.
Well, so I understand you were that summer of 1949. You were the first African American student to enroll at Oklahoma State University. Is that correct?
That's right. Mm-hmm. And then you know what? They gave a test the second week of school. And when I had this test, this is where they told they were surprised that I made such a high score on the test, the second highest grade. And they were surprised. And they told the professor the next Monday morning, we disagree with the state law. We want Nancy to sit in the classroom with us. And the professors became nervous, uneasy, and upset. And they said that we can't, they didn't want to lose their job. So they told the professor that, well, we want Nancy to sit in the classroom with us. So when the professor thought about it, she decided to let me sit in the classroom. And the other professor also.
So Nancy, see if I understand right, state law at that time said, while you could enroll at Oklahoma State University, you had to be separate.
That's right.
And so they had you sit out in the hallway just with the door open where you could hear the lecture, but you're out in the hallway.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Or either in the back of the room. And I had to sit in a little space where they had a little office in one of the classrooms.
So how many classes did you take that first summer?
I took 3 classes.
3 classes?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes.
Was this graduate level classes?
These were graduate level classes. Mm-hmm. I took a class in teaching home economics to high school students, a class in methods of teaching, and another class in how to get children interested in your clubs and organizations. And we had at that time the new homemakers of America for the black students and the future homemakers of America for the white students. So I found different ways that you could get the kids interested in really working and working hard in order to keep the organizations together. And I had one of the largest home economics classes in the state at that time. Had one of the largest home economics clubs in the state. And they thought I was just a smart little girl. Smart little teacher.
You told me a little bit about that. Now, you had 3 classes. When you first started, did you have to sit outside in all 3 of those classes?
No, in one class I had to sit in the hallway. Mm-hmm. Another class I had to sit in the back of the room. Mm-hmm. In another class I had to sit in the office space, which was very small. Mm-hmm. And the teacher, I couldn't hardly see or hear sometimes.
So as the year progressed, though, I mean, it's a summer semester, you got to move into the back of the class in all 3 of those classes?
After the summer was over, I did not have to do that. But at that time, I had to. The first year and the second year, I stayed in the community of Stillwater. I lived in the home with the principal and his wife and 2 daughters, the L.A. Ward family. And that was Versatile and Ella Pearl Ward. I called them my sisters because they treated me real nice. And the next summer I stayed with the Jones family. They lived next door. Mr. Ward was going to school at Colorado State, and he was taking administration courses. So when he came home, well, I had to stay next door because they didn't have enough room for me at the Ward's house.
Were these African American families, or were these white families that you're talking about?
They were black families.
Black families.
He was the principal of the Booker Washington
Washington School. Mm-hmm.
Washington School, here in Stillwater.
Okay.
And his daughters had attended the school, and one daughter was just graduating from high school, and the other daughter was about 2 or 3 years, about a sophomore in high school. And they were just really nice, sweet young ladies.
Okay. Well, Nancy, we're talking a little bit about your, the instructors that you had, a little bit of reception. Can you tell about your class experience with your fellow students? How did you relate to them? How they relate to you?
Well, the fellow students were really wonderful. Mm-hmm. They asked the professors that, we want Nancy to sit in the classroom with us. And they would tell me it every day. Nancy, don't you want to sit by me today? They acted as if I was a special person, because I would sit with them, study with them, go to the library. We had a library there in the building. Go to the library, study, make out lesson plans that we would use for our classes. Mm-hmm. And I also had demonstrations that we had to carry on. Mm-hmm. And we had demonstrations from each girl each lady in the classroom. Gave demonstration. I gave a demonstration on cake baking and one on decorating cake, because I had done lots of that.
How about outside the classroom? Were you involved in any activities? I know you were pretty much studying there in the summer, but were you in any activities, and did you interact with students outside of the classroom?
Yes. I would go with them on field trips, and that was outside the classroom. And I would also go with them on field trips where they were looking at me real funny, because I was sitting inside of one or two cafes, and I decided not to go on the next field trip because I had to go home and see my parents on that weekend.
Did you normally, how often did you go home?
I would go home practically every other week. My mother was taking care of my little nephews, and I would go home and help her with the laundry and housework and things like that.
That's good. So you felt welcomed and accepted by the students there? Yes.
Accepted by the students better than with the faculty members.
Were there any less than positive experiences that you remember? Were there some less than positive experiences that you hear at Oklahoma State with students?
Well, the most positive experience I had was going on a field trip, and we were there at a cafe, and they were eating, and I remember some of the girls were saying, "Well, Nancy can't eat here. Well, if she can't eat here, we won't eat here." And they would take me to Sapulpa to visit my parents on weekends. They were just as nice to me as if they had known me. I would tell them, they would ask me about the patterns that I used, because back there we made out of clothing. And they would ask me about the different patterns that I used and how I made this different dress and different things.
Do you remember some of your professors? Were there some of them that were helpful to you? Did you recall some that were mentors to you?
Yes, Dr. Ron Eller. She wasn't a doctor, Miss Ron Eller. She was from Ohio, and she was my major professor. Dr. Millie Pearson, who was one of my professors, and she was just as nice as she could be. And she didn't care whether I was black or white. If something needed to be done, she would ask me to do it, ask the girls to do it. Mm-hmm. And we had another lady, I can't think of her name. I can't think of her name, but she was one who really taught us a lot about FHA and NHA. how to get the girls meetings and how to carry a meeting on is follow rules of order.
Mm-hmm. Etiquette and things.
Mm-hmm.
Etiquette.
Etiquette. Mm-hmm.
Parliamentary procedures.
Parliamentary procedures. That's what we had. We had studied to know how to carry on.
Well, Nancy, did you have some favorite places on campus? Student hangouts, places that you went as a student on and off campus?
Well, on the campus, I would go to the I'd leave the campus and go to some of the fast food places. They had little Dairy Queen,
Mm-hmm.
and they had places like Sonic's, but it wasn't called Sonic's.
Did you go to, after they opened the student union in 1950? Did you go to the student union?
I went to the student union after so many of the black students came out. I went with them, but had I gone before then, I would have been going by myself because most of these girls were poor as I was, and they always said that they didn't have money to eat in the cafeteria. So we ate in the cafeteria occasionally, but not often. Ate in the cafeteria at the end of our classes. That's at the end of the month that we were here.
Nancy, how did it, that first summer in 1949, you were the only black student enrolled on the campus. How did it feel to be the only out of several thousand students to be the only black student?
Now, I was not the only black student. There was a man who was majoring in industrial arts.
Okay.
He was a brother to Ruby Hall. His name was Herbert Hibbler.
Oh.
And he was an industrial arts major. Okay. I did never get to meet him the whole time I was here that summer. I tried to get in contact with him, but he was busy and I was busy. So I was the second student. I was the first student, but Herbert Hibbler. And then the next summer, we had students coming. The third summer, we had students coming, and they provided a hall for us. Hannah Hall, I shall never forget her. And all the black people had to stay in the hall. The first floor was for the ladies, second floor was for the men, and first floor was for the married couple, and the second floor was for the ladies, and the third floor was for the men, and that was Hannah Hall.
And Hannah Hall?
Mm-hmm. It's across from Student Union.
Okay. Did as you progressed through those 4 summers from 1949 to 1952 in those years, how did the attitudes by students and faculty change over that time toward you?
Well, I remember the third summer we had competition seemingly with the white students and the black students. It wasn't any big competition, but they try to have, like we had posters to make, we had lesson plans to make out, and we had different kinds of little activities going on in the classroom. And I noticed that the black students would stick together and the white students would stick together. But so far as any major animosity or anything like that.
Did people seem to be a little more accepting after a little while than they were
when
you first came?
They were. Mm-hmm.
More welcoming and more accepting.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think they were any more welcoming because the first year it was really welcome to me because I was the only one. But when lots of us came, it was just about the same.
And so kind of go back to your question about when you first enrolled at Oklahoma State University, and you said it was less than inviting, but can you share with us, I think you had indicated earlier that maybe you had difficulty getting enrolled the first time you came here?
Yes, I did. The head of the home economics department told me that we were not ready and that you should wait and go to school in Kansas, Colorado, either in Ohio. And I decided that I was going to go to school here anyway. I said, well, I think I should go to school here. This is my home. Oklahoma's my home, and I don't have the money to go to other schools, so I'm going to go to school here. So
But
I-
they refused to enroll you at that first time. Is
they
that correct?
they refused to enroll me, but I think somebody called the Black Dispatch, which is Roscoe Dungy's office, and told them that Nancy Davis had not been able to get in school and she's trying. So Roscoe Dungy, who is the president of the NAACP, and Amos G. Hall came to this university and talked to them, and they let me enroll within 3 days.
So they told them legally how it had to be, right?
Yes.
I appreciate you sharing that story. That explains some things. But looking back now, after you got your degree, just ask you a little bit. Did it feel good to finally get that diploma? I mean, after all that hard work and 4 summers and getting turned down and some of the difficulties you had,
Yes,
you must have felt
because
good about that.
I not only went 4 summers, I would come on Saturdays when I was working on my thesis. My advisor, Ron Evans, would tell me that she would help me with my thesis if I could come through on a Saturday. So I'd come on Saturdays. And I also took a few classes from OU at night, methods in teaching and some other classes that I took at OU in order to have enough credits to finish in 1953.
How did your graduate education at Oklahoma State University help you in your professional career? Was it important to you? Was it helpful to you?
It was very helpful. It was knowledgeable. I was able to work with the parents and be down to earth, not feel that I was above anybody. And it was helpful in helping me to know how to do a lot of little things in the community with the people, like working with the PTA and working with the different organizations that they had at our church.
So you learned I think I hear you saying, in addition to the professional and technical expertise you learned, and also just
how to reach out in the
right,
community.
Right. And then the certification, having a degree, a master's degree from
Or
Oklahoma State
that
University.
knowledge. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Great.
I met certifications of the State Department of Vocational Home Economics because I was teaching vocational home economics. And the FHA was part of it, NHA, and that's why I took that class that first summer.
Nancy, why did you want education so bad? I mean, you must have really, you worked hard to get this, and you segregation, persecution, hard times. I mean, what was your incentive? What was your motivation? What drove you to get this degree? You had to be tremendously motivated to do this.
Well, I was motivated through my professors at Langston. I was motivated through my parents. And at Langston University, I had a professor there by the name of Lenoya Gander, who was state supervisor of the Negro schools. And she always said that you young ladies who are going out to teach, learn to work with the families, learn to get involved, help those children. They don't know anything, so you're going to teach them everything they know. Probably everything that they learn it in the classroom. And she was a great motivator in encouraging me to be ready. Oh, I had a wonderful friend at that time, my husband. He was one who was very polite, mannerable young man who would take me out to dinner, because I wasn't used to going out to dinner with the guys at Langston. I had a boyfriend there, but going to Langston University, going to teach at Dungy School, I had this nice, wonderful young man who was very light, polite, very intelligent, and dignified, that I really admired. So he would take me out to dinner, probably once a week. And he didn't have very much money, but we would go to inexpensive cafes and restaurants. And they were in the black part of town.
Motivated you to get your master's.
He motivated me to get my master's because he was working. He had to go out of state to Kansas Kansas State Teachers College to get his degree, and he was working on the administrative certificate. So he got his master's in administration.
So,
And he became the vice principal at the school where I taught at Daisy School.
so he was a strong encourager for you. And
Very much so. And also my godparents, who were teachers and lived in Cushing, Oklahoma. I had my godparents, Joyce Johnson and Gretchen Johnson. They encouraged me to get my master's and told me to stick with it. Don't give up. It's going to be hard.
well, looking back, Nancy, are there you've remained an advocate for the OSU College of Human Environmental Sciences through the years. I know they're proud of you over there. In your opinion, how's the college changed over the years, and what would you tell prospective students about going to OSU today?
Well, the university has changed so very much because they have a large building there where they're teaching foods and nutrition. They're teaching all kinds of child development, and they have a nice child development plant. I just visited there when I came over here on February 2nd, and that plant is there, and they have all kinds of technologies that you use in teaching kids, and the children are divided into classes as if they were in high school. They had fashion design, and they had really a hotel where the kids would go and prepare food, and prepare food for banquets, and prepare food for different kinds of family reunions. And it has just been a turnover of design for home and for
Just increased the number of majors and the scope of studies and so on.
yes, the scope of studies.
Well, Nancy, I forgot to ask you earlier. Did you take classes in at that time was the new Home Economics, Home Economics West, or were you in the older Home Economics East building?
I was in the old Home Economics East.
Well,
I took foods and nutrition in that particular, and I took a class in home preservation of foods, where we did lots of canning, jelly making, preserve making, and things like that. And in the foods and nutrition, we planned and prepared food for the family.
So the new Home Economics West was not open at that time?
It wasn't open.
You were one student, I see. Okay. Looking back, your career, the time you spent at Oklahoma State University, were there some OSU experiences that stand out in your mind that were special to you?
There were so many things that were special to me because I had not been exposed to working with people in a large area of food. And I was not exposed to being in fashion designing. Only designer we got was when we made clothing for ourselves. But with fashion designing, you were making clothing for the stores and department stores. And it was there lots of tailoring in the classroom, and we had lots of preparation for marriage, and planning for weddings, and making garments for weddings. It was a whole new avenue with the home economics, home environmental sciences.
Nancy, you experienced discrimination at OSU, yet you persevered. Do you feel that your OSU experience and the path that you helped blaze at that time helped prepare the way for other African American students that followed you, especially female students?
Yes, I encouraged lots of them by telling them to come to this particular school. Be sure to keep their grades up so they can be prepared, because if your grades are not up, you will not be accepted. And I would tell them to get prepared for the new day, because you will be working with boys as well as girls. And I had school life had changed for me in my school, because I had a teacher by the name of Clara Luper, who was one that liked to expose her homeroom students to home economics. So I taught those guys how to sew and cook and how to make pants, how to make vests, reversible vests, and they had to be on the fashion show. If they stayed in my classroom, I told them, you have to show something that you've done. You can't just come in and sew and say, I made this dress. You have to make it in the classroom and fashion it. You boys had to make vests, and they had to fashion and pair pants.
You mentioned Clara Looper.
Yes, Clara Looper was a good friend of mine,
Mm-hmm.
and I used to go with her downtown with the sit-in movement.
Mm-hmm.
And we would open doors at John A. Brown's,
Mm-hmm.
and at the different stores like Animals Cafeteria, Skirvin Tower Hotel, and the different places where they did not want blacks. We were there. As we stopped going to the stop them from going to places where they had to go to the back door to eat. Restaurants. Open doors to restaurants.
In your opinion, how has the student experience for African American students here at OSU changed since you were a student?
Well, they've changed mostly with.
I'll sort of repeat that question about, in your opinion, how has the student experience for African American students at OSU changed since you were a student?
Well, it's changed because students now are able to get financial aid. They're getting help from different organizations giving scholarships, and they're getting help from the student organizations. They're more together. They only had a few students, and when I was here, only had one or two students. And then the next summer, they had probably about 30 students who came and worked on their master's degree. And then the next summer, had a big drove of them who came. And they all were interested in getting a master's degree and improving their teaching ability.
Nancy, I'd like to visit with you for a while now, kind of change the subject maybe about your teaching career. You taught home economics for 20 years at Dungy High School in Choctaw, and then for an additional 23 years in Star Spencer, is that right?
Yes, I taught 20 years in Choctaw school system, but the school system for Dungy School was annexed in 1968.
Okay, so they merged together.
And it was emerged in 1960.
Okay. Can you share some of your teaching experiences with me there at Dungy and in Choctaw High School?
Well, the teaching experience that I had at Dungy School was that we used books, and sometimes the books were not new. And we had a new home economics building, and we made our own curtains for the home economics room. We made our clothing, and we learned the teaching experience was one that the kids had more hands-on activities. And when I went to Dungy and Choctaw, the same thing. They were in the same school system. However, Dungy School was annexed into Oklahoma City School. When going to Star Spencer High School, we had plenty of things to work with. Each girl had a sewing machine, and maybe one or two girls. And each girl had facilities where they could cook together as partners. With Dungy School, I had to give lots of demonstrations in order for the kids to learn because we didn't have the time, we didn't have the equipment to work with. We had plenty of aid things like overhead projectors to work with at Star Spencer. We had films to work with in Star Spencer School. Now, this is an Oklahoma City school. It was much better with the equipment and modern technology.
Nancy, speaking of Star Spencer, you taught home economics, but also you were a child care instructor Can you tell us about what that entailed?
Yes, well, I taught child here in Spencer the last 12 years of my teaching experience. We had a nice little building across the street from the main building. It was in front of the football field. And we had a 2-room building. The first room was where I taught the 11th graders techniques in teaching and how to teach and how to prepare for teaching. They had to learn different songs and different rhymes. They had to learn how to fish bulletin boards. They had to learn to prepare food for the kids in the 11th grade. But when they went into the 12th grade, it's just like a student teaching laboratory. They had to put it into practice. We had learn and earn on-the-job training in the child development there. The students were become very important teachers. And last year they were second-year teaching. First year they were learning. So they were learning, and then they were put on jobs. If they had a job opening in a daycare center, the children in the home ec department, in the child development department, were put on jobs to be assistant teachers or to be teachers.
So they had some release time from school, so they'd have some jobs away from school, and then also
yes, had jobs at school and a job at away from school.
Nancy, we're going to stop right here. Okay, we're starting on tape 2 of the interview. Nancy, was there some special students that you remember, that were special to you? Maybe some of them that went on and did something significant in their life, or just really give back to the community that you remember you taught, and that you thought maybe made a difference in their lives?
Listen, I meet people from day to day that I have taught. Some I have forgotten and some I remember, who are teachers in the schools, and they talk about how the child development class, marriage and relations class, foods class, they talk about the different things that they learn in sewing class and how it has helped them and their families. They have also come and told me that they were in charge of child development labs in their home, home
care facilities.
Home child development, where they had them. They're quite prominent with people who are in the low income families and they don't have money. The welfare will pay for their children's training. And these kids now are good teachers. They are good child care teachers, good seamsters, and they make their living like this. And they are students who can feel that they really have used their talent wisely.
Is there any names that we might know, people that have gone on and been successful that you taught, that comes to your mind?
Well, the ones that come to my mind would be Wilma Wooten, who is a dress fashion designer, and she makes money right there at her home, and she doesn't have to go out. Another person is Dorothy Mukes, who is a designer and makes evening dresses and all kinds of dresses, from evening wear to school wear. And she does a nice job, and she has lots of people coming to her for sewing. And also another one by the name of Olitha Orange. Olitha has lots of grandchildren, and she's made lots of clothing for her grandchildren. And these parents that I have taught, they come back to visit me at school, and they visit me in my home. They visit me when we have our home economics meeting. We have a group of ladies who are YHOs, Young Homemakers of Oklahoma. They are parents of most of the preschool children. They work together with me in presenting fashion shows and presenting dinners. And we made money to take the kids on nice trips out around the state and to the zoos and movies and see Sesame Street and things like that.
Well, in what ways were you involved with students outside the classroom? For example, were you a sponsor? Were you in charge of student activities? Did you interact with students outside the classroom as well?
Yes, we interact with them by some of the students that we would interact with would be those who had finished and they had children in the preschool. Mm-hmm. And we had young homemakers group who had, we didn't have too many blacks that were participating in the Young Homemakers of America, mm-hmm. but we had Mrs. Zena DeBose, who's the first secretary, state secretary of the Young Homemakers of Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. We had Mrs. Audrey Henry, who was over this fashion show. And we had a teacher aide who helped us with our fashion show, Joanna Beasley. She was a person that worked with the kids and she worked with me in presenting fashion shows every Christmas. And we call it the Christmas Fashion Show. And we draw lots of people in the community because they love to see their little ones perform and model. They can model. And they can show off their pretty clothing that their parents had made or either bought for them.
What would you tell a young person today who's considering a career in education? What wisdom would you share with them, and would you encourage them?
Oh, yes, I would urge them to get an education, to be sure to study hard, work hard, to have good character so people will believe in you, work in your community, and to be a person that would help others in the organizations, like scholarships that are being prepared. Mm-hmm. Give those scholarships to some child in the community who's in need. And give of yourself at your church when the church is having anything. Young people today sometimes don't find time to work with other people. When I tell them, take time out, it all what you give to the world, it comes back.
It was true for you that education made a difference in your life. Do you think that's still important for young men and women today?
Education is the key. That's my motto. Education is the key. If you have an education and you know people how to work with them, and you can reach out and touch others, then you will be much happier and you'll be successful in life.
And would you encourage them to go into a teaching profession, into education, be a public school teacher?
Well, I would encourage them to go in the profession of teaching if they have the knowledge and the willpower to want to help children. Because our children today are nervous and upset. We have different kinds of homes now. Children are not getting the spiritual growth. Mm-hmm. And we don't have Bibles in the school anymore. We don't have flags we don't have the love for our country that we should have. Mm-hmm. And this would be necessary to teach children as little ones to learn how to respect themselves, their family, respect God first of all, and to make something out of themselves that they can be somebody.
Nancy, religion and your personal religious faith is obviously very important to you. Is this something you learned at home, growing up in your family?
No, my religion is something that I learned in the school, in the community, at church, with my neighbors, and everywhere I go. Because most of all of the black people that I knew in that day, they always believed that if you live and you give, it will come back to you. That you should be a person that is ready to accept criticism, and your criticism will help you to be a better person today. Because nobody's perfect, and this is a place where no man is an island. He can't stand alone.
Well, those times when you were being persecuted, when you were having to fight hard to get your education and higher education, did your personal faith, was that a strong support for you in those tough times?
Definitely. That's strong to pray every day, to trust God as my mother would always say, not just trust Him one time when you get in trouble, but trust God every day. And thank God for all of the good things that you have, as well as the bad days that you have, because those bad days will make you have good days if you look up and trust the Master and know that He's with you.
Well, what community activities? I know you've been involved in a lot of community activities, professional organizations, advocacy causes. Can you share some of these experiences that have been especially important to you? You were talking about some of them earlier.
Well, some of the organizations that I was involved in was the Urban League, and they raised money to give scholarships, have classes, evening classes for the children. Another was PTA. We gave scholarships to the children and gave dinners. And another organization was the NAECP, where we helped the children who were going off on trips and children who were going downtown with Tallulah to do their sit-in movement, where we could get a sandwich or a Coke and sit down rather than stand up, go in the bathroom and use the bathroom without having to walk a mile to the bus station to use the bathroom. These organizations were helpful because we felt that this was good for our state and our whole nation, that people can look at you and see that you are the type of clean individual that they're looking for and not look down on you.
Can you share some of your experiences in your early integration activities you were talking about earlier when you were in Anamod's cafeteria and Brown's and different Anthony's, different places? Were there some experiences you could share with us? Did you have some unpleasant experiences as part of that?
Well, we had unpleasant experiences because we go to John A. Brown's every day. And sometimes the kids would just lay out in the floor and they get tired. And they would tell them to get up, and they would not get up. When they arrested, tried to say that they were arrested, but they didn't arrest them. They arrested Tallulah. And my husband was one of those that always told me, please don't be a jailbird. I don't want to be a jailbird. So you followed the rules. So I managed not to get arrested. But I was always there with her. And when it came to doing something that they didn't like for us to do, like when you go and sing, I won't let nobody turn me around. I won't let nobody turn me around. We keep on walking, keep on stepping. I'm not going to turn around. We just sing those songs. And we would go to the Shermantown Hotel. It was lots of hotels. They didn't want any blacks there. There were people who were there and working in the kitchen. They wanted to see us get free from having to go to the back door. And they would just, tell us that we just keep on going. And they would encourage us. Tallulah was a person that said she didn't care. They said, your house is going to get burned down. And they did try to burn the house down, but some kind of way they didn't burn. And they burned the building that we had where we had our meetings. And they did all manner of different evil things. But we didn't stop. We still built the building back. And we just prayed and asked the Lord to give us strength to build the building back. So Tallulah was our leader, and we let her do the talking. And we were to follow her and follow her advice.
And you didn't turn around, right?
And we did not turn around.
Well, how do you feel about race relations and how they've evolved in America, say in Oklahoma specifically? Are you pleased with the direction it's going, the changes have been made?
I think race relation is fine in Oklahoma. We have lots of people who will still be different and will not want to be bothered with black people, but we don't worry about that. We just keep our heads up and keep going.
There's still challenges there in racial relations?
There are challenges, yes.
Nancy, you've truly lived a life of significance. You've received numerous recognition from state and national organizations, from the governor and legislature of the state of Oklahoma. I know the OSU Alumni Association has recognized you with its Distinguished Alumni Award. There's 3 different scholarships here at OSU in your name and Nancy Randolph Davis' name. And then also Nancy Randolph Davis Day is observed at OSU, one day every year during the Black Awareness Week. I mean, wow.
Did you name the Nancy Randolph Davis building?
Yeah, that's right. And they got a building named after you. Excuse me. There's the Residential Life apartment complex has been named after you.
That's right.
You've come a long way since the days you had to sit out in the hallway.
That's true.
What do you think about that?
Well, I just think we have a lot of Christian people here at OSU and good people. I think that we have a lot of people around from OSU that would like to stop the progress, but I feel the good Lord is with us, and that we are always going to succeed because we trust Him. And the people at OSU are good Christian people. They are people who are reaching out and they want to help those who are wanting to help themselves. Those who are not wanting to help themselves, they don't stay long anyway.
Nancy, looking back on your life, what accomplishments and recognitions that you received out of all the recognition, what's given you the most personal satisfaction?
The personal satisfaction that I've had is that I am a mother, a wife, and then a mother. And then I was a teacher. I was a Sunday school teacher. I was a leader in my church. I was a person that was led in my community. Anything came up that I could help, I would help people. When they had homes to be burned down, I was there to help. I had personal satisfaction in knowing that I could help the aged. I used to go with the FHA every Saturday, and we would have prayer and would read to the aging people that were there, and would have singing with the aging people. They enjoyed having young people come in. This was gratifying to me. And it has really helped because out of my lifetime, I've been in a very serious car accident, and I stayed in the hospital for 7 months, and the good Lord just saw me through that. I've had both of my legs operated on for new knee operations. Mm-hmm. I've come through that, and I said, well, the Lord must be keeping me here for a good purpose.
Still got something in mind for you, right, Nancy? He's not through with you yet.
I'm still getting honors from my church, and my church will be honoring me on the 27th. The
environmental sciences.
No,
here at OSU, the College of Human Environmental Sciences. Used to be called Home Economics.
No, I'm not thinking about that. I'm talking about the people at the Human Welfare Office.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Human Services?
Human Services. They had honored me on the 27th morning. Mm-hmm. So I feel that this is just something that the Lord wants me to enjoy while I'm alive. Like Langston University honored me today at the 11 o'clock service. The 11 o'clock honoring ceremony.
Here about a month ago, the Oklahoma Human
Service Department in Oklahoma City. It's going to be at Mount Olive Baptist Church on the 27th. Mm-hmm. And on that night, my church is having an honorary service for me at 7 o'clock and having a play depicting Nancy Davis at OSU as the first African American.
Well, the Human Rights Commission just honored you here about a month ago. Is that correct?
No, that was the human rights. They did also. Mm-hmm. And then the governor of Oklahoma, he was the one that appointed me as a lay member on the State Board of Nursing.
For first lay members, I recall. Isn't that right?
Mm-hmm. First lay members of the nursing board. Just
accolades abound.
I have forever. And people in the Young Homemakers of America, my plant garden and savings club, I shouldn't forget them. They have wanted me, the Amigos Club, which is the oldest club in Oklahoma City. They were organized in 1944, and there's a club that Claire Luther was president, and now Rosa Coleman was president, and they're honoring me. I get honors every time you turn around.
Well, Nancy, what values have been most important to you and that you've tried to impart into students that you've taught and into people that you've come into contact with through the years? What principles, what values have been important to you that you've tried to share with others?
Well, some of the values are that we should always remember to put God first in our life. Try to help others. Reach out and help those who are sick and down or afflicted. Help the children who are orphans. So many times they're overlooked. And to encourage children to go to college in the scholarships program. And working with my sorority, we reach out and we give over $10,000 a year in scholarships. The top ladies, I think you remember, they invited you where they honored me as the top ladies in 2002. So many organizations until I can't remember all of them. Phi Beta Sigma Gamma Rho sorority, they honored me. And the Delta Sigma Theta, not Deltas, the Zeta Phi Beta sorority has honored me, and my sorority has honored me just a number of times as the most outstanding soror in my chapter when there are about 220 of us.
Great. Well, Nancy, how do you hope people will remember Nancy Randolph Davis? Looking back in your life, how do you hope they'll remember you? What do you want them to remember you for?
I just want them to remember me as a person who was reaching out, trying to help others and helping myself. Remember me as a person who was an educator, did not think that I was the leader, but they were just as important as I was.
Nancy, is there anything else we haven't covered? Is there anything you'd like to share with us that we haven't talked about?
I think that we've covered about everything.
Okay, thank you.